The morning started like any other morning on New Gyeonggi Colony, but Administrator Hwang Minho knew something was wrong when his coffee cup began to vibrate on his desk. The colony sat on the edge of known space, 47 light-years from Earth, and served as humanity's most distant mining outpost, where 50,000 people worked to extract rare minerals from the planet's rich deposits. Park Ji-won sat at her communication station in the main control tower watching the daily reports flow in from the mining sites when her equipment suddenly screamed with emergency signals that made her heart race. Administrator Hwang to the communication center immediately. She called over the intercom while her fingers flew over the controls, trying to understand what the long-range sensors were detecting. Kim Do-hyun was reviewing security reports when the alert came through, and he dropped his datapad to grab his weapon, knowing that his years as an Earth Defense Force Marine had taught him to trust his instincts when danger approached. Dr. Lee So-man was treating a minor injury in the medical center when the emergency lights began flashing red, and she could hear people shouting in the corridors outside her clinic. Administrator Hwang rushed into the communications center where Park Ji-won pointed at her screens with a trembling finger, showing massive objects dropping out of hyperspace just beyond the colony's outer sensor range. "How many ships?" Hwang asked, while Kim Do-hyun burst through the doors with his security team behind him. 12 large vessels, sir, and they're not responding to our identification requests," Park Ji-won replied, as she tried every communication frequency known to human space. The ships were unlike anything in the human database, with sleek black hulls that seemed to absorb light and strange energy patterns that made the sensors struggle to get clear readings. Kim Do-hyun studied the tactical display and felt his stomach drop, because these vessels were each larger than anything humanity had ever built, and their energy signatures were completely alien. "Send a message to Earth immediately," Administrator Hwang ordered, but Park Ji-won shook her head because the aliens were already jamming most communication frequencies. The first energy beam struck the colony's main shield generator, and the entire facility shook like it was hit by an earthquake, while emergency alarms began wailing throughout every building. Dr. Lee So-man watched through her clinic window as a brilliant green beam of light carved through the air and struck the industrial complex, sending explosions cascading across the mining equipment. "Shields are down to 60% after one hit," Kim Do-hyun reported while his security teams scrambled to their defensive positions around the colony's perimeter. The alien ships moved closer, with a grace that seemed impossible for vessels of their size, and their weapon ports began glowing with the same green energy that had already damaged the shield's administrator. Hwang grabbed the colony-wide communication system, and his voice echoed through every speaker in New Gyeonggi, telling people to move to emergency shelters immediately. Park Ji-won managed to break through the jamming for a few seconds and screamed into her transmitter, requesting immediate assistance from any human ships in the area. But the nearest patrol was 3 weeks away. The second barrage of energy beams struck multiple targets simultaneously, and the colony's shields collapsed completely, leaving 50,000 civilians completely exposed to whatever the aliens planned to do next. Kim Do-hyun watched his defensive turrets fire back at the alien ships, but their energy weapons seemed to have no effect whatsoever on the black hulls that deflected every shot like they were bouncing off mirrors. "We need to evacuate the population," Dr. Lee So-man said over the emergency channel while she helped injured people who were streaming into her medical center. "Where can we go?" Administrator Hwang replied. Because the colony ships were designed for supply runs, not mass evacuation, and the aliens had already surrounded the entire planet. The alien ships began deploying smaller craft that looked like metallic insects swarming toward the colony's main population centers, while larger vessels maintained their bombardment of the remaining defenses. Park Ji-won suddenly realized that one communication channel was still open, and she turned to Administrator Hwang with desperate hope in her eyes because she might be able to send a message to Earth. "It will take 47 years for any signal to reach home," she said, while her hands hovered over the emergency transmission controls. "Send it anyway," Hwang ordered, because even if help came too late for them, it might warn Earth about what was coming for the rest of humanity. The alien landing craft touched down in the colony's main square, and strange creatures emerged wearing armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal while carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Kim Do-hyun led his security forces in a desperate charge against the invaders, but their small arms fire had no effect on the alien armor and his people. Began falling under return fire that cut through their protective gear like paper. Dr. Lee Soman tried to treat the wounded, but the alien weapons caused injuries unlike anything she had seen before, leaving wounds that seemed to burn from the inside. Park Ji-won began transmitting everything she could toward Earth, including detailed scans of the alien ships, their weapons, and their technology, while explosions shook the communications tower around her. The alien commander was tall and covered, in scales that shifted color like oil on water, and when it spoke through some kind of translator device, its voice sounded like grinding metal. Humans of this colony, you will surrender immediately and submit to processing, the creature announced, while its soldiers herded civilians toward the main gathering areas. Administrator Huang refused to give the surrender order, even when alien weapons were pointed at his head, because he had sworn to protect every person under his command. These beings are now property of the Vorthak Empire, and will serve as workers in our mining operations, the alien commander continued, while more ships landed, carrying equipment that looked designed for strip mining. The entire planet Kim Do-hyun rallied the remaining security forces for one final desperate attack to buy Park Ji-won more time to complete her transmission to Earth. But he knew they could not hold out much longer. "Tell Earth what happened here," he said to Dr. Lee Soman while handing her his personal data recorder that contained everything he had observed about the alien tactics and weaknesses. The Vorthak commander watched the human resistance with what might have been amusement, and seemed unconcerned about the message being transmitted. Toward their homeworld, let them send their plea for help, the alien said to its subordinates. By the time any response arrives, we will have strip-mined this world and moved on to harvest the rest of their colonies. Park Ji-won managed to complete the transmission just as alien soldiers burst into the communications center, and she smiled knowing that somewhere far away, Earth would eventually learn what had happened to New Gyeonggi Colony. The message raced through space, carrying detailed information about the Vorthak Empire, their technology, and their plans. While behind it, the last free humans on New Gyeonggi were being rounded up for processing. Dr. Lee Soman helped wounded civilians, while Administrator Huang and Kim Do-hyun were forced to watch their colony being dismantled by alien machinery that worked with frightening efficiency. The Vorthak had no idea that their casual decision to allow one desperate transmission would eventually bring down upon them a response beyond their wildest nightmares, because they had never encountered a species like humanity before. As the message traveled through the void toward Earth, the survivors of New Gyeonggi Colony began their long ordeal under alien occupation, never knowing that their cry for help would one day return as thunder. Deep Space Monitoring Station Echo 7 had been listening to the void between stars for 30 years when technician Rodriguez detected something that made him call his supervisor immediately. The signal was weak and old, having traveled 47 light-years from the New Gyeonggi system, and when the computers finished cleaning up the transmission, the message that emerged made everyone in the station stop what they were doing. "This is New Gyeonggi Colony Administrator Hwang Min-ho, sending emergency transmission to Earth Command. We are under attack by unknown alien forces requesting immediate military assistance." Fleet Admiral Choi Woo-jin was reviewing fleet readiness reports in his office aboard the orbital station above Earth when the priority message from Echo 7 arrived and changed everything. The year was 2434, and humanity had grown far beyond what anyone in 2387 could have imagined, with colonies in 12 star systems, and a military that had evolved from simple patrol craft to massive battle fleets. Captain Yoon Seo-hyun commanded the flagship battlecruiser Seoul's Thunder and was conducting training exercises with her crew when the recall order came through with priority codes she had never seen. Before, Intelligence Director Kang Ji-soo had spent her entire career studying potential alien threats. But the detailed scans from New Gyeonggi Colony showed technology that was both familiar and terrifying. Master Sergeant Lim Tae-hyun was training new recruits in orbital drop tactics when his commanding officer pulled him aside to brief him on something that would require his most elite Marines. Admiral Choi gathered his senior staff in the secure briefing room deep inside Earth Command and activated the holographic display that showed the alien ships attacking New Gyeonggi 47 years ago. These beings call themselves the Vorthak Empire, and according to our analysis, they possess energy-based weapons and defensive systems that were superior to our technology in 2387, he began, while the officers studied the enemy vessels. Captain Yoon examined the tactical data and realized that the alien energy weapons would have been devastating against humanity's old armor and shields, but things had changed dramatically since then. Our kinetic weapons should penetrate their energy shields completely, she reported while running combat simulations on her personal display. And our new armor plating is designed specifically to deflect energy attacks. Intelligence Director Kang had been analyzing every frame of the transmission, and her findings painted a disturbing picture of an empire that viewed other species as nothing more than resources to be harvested. This was not a random attack, she explained to the assembled officers. The Vorthak chose New Gyeonggi because it was isolated and they wanted to test human defenses before launching a larger invasion. Master Sergeant Lim studied the alien ground forces and began planning tactics that would counter their apparent advantages in armor and weapons. Technology, Admiral Choi walked to the star chart and pointed at the New Gyeonggi system, while his staff calculated travel times and fleet requirements for what was beginning to look like the largest military operation in human history. The transmission is 47 years old, which means any survivors have been under alien occupation for nearly 5 decades, he said while the weight of that reality settled on everyone in the room. Captain Yoon volunteered her ship and crew for the mission, but Admiral Choi was already thinking on a much larger scale, because this was not just about rescuing one colony. We will deploy the entire third fleet along with support vessels and marine divisions, he announced, while his staff began pulling up deployment schedules and logistics requirements. Intelligence Director Kang interrupted with urgent new data that changed the scope of the operation, entirely because deep space sensors had detected something that made the New Gyeonggi attack look like a minor skirmish. Long-range monitoring shows Vorthak expansion fleets moving toward 3 more human colonies, she reported, while highlighting their projected routes on the star chart. The implications were clear that New Gyeonggi had been the first move in a larger strategy to systematically destroy or capture every human settlement beyond the core worlds. Admiral Choi authorized the deployment of 300 warships, including 12 massive dreadnought-class vessels that had never been used in actual combat. Captain Yoon received orders to modify her ship's armament specifically for fighting Vorthak technology, while her crew began intensive training for extended deep space operations. Master Sergeant Lim was given command of 50,000 Marines equipped with the most advanced weapons and armor humanity had ever produced. The preparation took 6 months, while Earth's shipyards worked around the clock to retrofit vessels with weapons designed to exploit what appeared to be fundamental weaknesses in Vorthak defensive systems. Intelligence Director Kang established communication networks that would allow the fleet to coordinate with any resistance movements that might have survived on New Gyeonggi. Admiral Choi addressed the entire fleet before departure, and his words would be remembered long after the mission was complete. 47 years ago, our people sent a cry for help into the darkness, and we are the answer to that call, he said while thousands of crew members listened from their ships. The Vorthak Empire made a mistake when they attacked humans because they assumed we were weak and isolated, but they will learn that we are neither. Captain Yoon felt the excitement and determination of her crew as Seoul's Thunder led the massive fleet out of Earth's solar system and into hyperspace. The journey to New Gyeonggi would take several years, even with humanity's most advanced faster than light drives, but every day of travel brought them closer to a reckoning that the Vorthak never saw coming. During the long journey, the fleet encountered evidence of other civilizations that had fallen to Vorthak expansion, and the pattern was always the same, with worlds stripped of resources and populations enslaved or destroyed. Master Sergeant Lim used the travel time to study every detail of Vorthak tactics and equipment while developing countermeasures that would give his Marines every possible advantage. Intelligence Director Kang intercepted alien communications that revealed the Vorthak viewed humans as soft ones who would break easily under pressure. They think we are primitive and weak, she reported to Admiral Choi during one of their regular briefings, which means they will not be prepared for what we bring to their doorstep. The fleet's xenobiology experts analyzed the limited data about Vorthak physiology and developed specialized weapons that would be effective against their apparent biological advantages. Captain Yoon's tactical officers ran thousands of combat simulations, trying to predict how Vorthak ships would respond to human kinetic weapons, and the results were consistently favorable as they approached the halfway point of their journey. Long-range sensors detected massive Vorthak fleet movements that suggested the aliens were preparing for something much larger than anyone had anticipated. Admiral Choi realized that the rescue mission had become the opening battle of what might be an interstellar war between two completely different approaches to galactic expansion. The Vorthak expanded through conquest and enslavement, while humanity had grown through cooperation and mutual defense agreements with other species. When we arrive at New Gyeonggi, we will not just be rescuing our people, Admiral Choi told his senior staff. We will be announcing to the galaxy that humanity has arrived as a major power, intelligence. Director Kang's analysis suggested that the Vorthak had never encountered serious resistance from any species they had attacked, which meant they would be completely unprepared for human military doctrine. Master Sergeant Lim's Marines trained constantly during the journey using virtual reality systems that simulated combat against Vorthak forces in various environments. Captain Yoon modified her ship's systems to coordinate with the other vessels in ways that would maximize their firepower, while minimizing their exposure to enemy weapons. The fleet's approach to New Gyeonggi system was carefully planned to avoid detection until they were ready to strike, because surprise would be crucial to their success. Admiral Choi knew that somewhere, ahead of them in the darkness of space, 50,000 humans might still be alive after decades of occupation, and that knowledge drove every decision he made as the fleet prepared for the final approach to their destination. The crew members understood that they were about to engage an enemy that had never experienced defeat. The Vorthak Empire was about to learn what happened when someone threatened humanity, and then waited 47 years for the response to arrive. The Earth fleet traveled through hyperspace for 3 years while the crew prepared for what they might find when they reached the New Gyeonggi system. Captain Yoon Seo-hyun stood on the bridge of Seoul's Thunder watching the swirling colors of hyperspace flow past her ship. While her tactical officers ran their daily combat simulations, Admiral Choi Woo-jin used the long journey to study every piece of intelligence about the Vorthak Empire that his analysts could gather from intercepted communications and encounters with other alien species. Master Sergeant Lim Tae-hyun trained his Marines in specialized combat techniques designed specifically for fighting enemies who relied on energy weapons and advanced armor systems. The fleet's scientists worked constantly to develop new countermeasures against Vorthak technology, while engineering teams modified weapons and defensive systems based on the data from New Gyeonggi Intelligence Director Kang Ji-soo discovered disturbing patterns in Vorthak expansion that suggested they had been systematically conquering species across the galaxy for thousands of years. During the second year of travel, the fleet encountered a refugee convoy from the Alterian Confederation fleeing from Vorthak, forces that had destroyed their home worlds. Captain Yoon ordered her ship to assist the refugees, and what they learned from the survivors changed everything. The humans thought they knew about their enemy. The Alterians described Vorthak tactics that always followed the same pattern with initial bombardment, followed by ground occupation and systematic strip mining of planetary resources. They do not negotiate or show mercy, explained Alterian Commander Vex while recovering in Seoul's Thunder's medical bay. Every species they encounter becomes either slaves or food. Admiral Choi questioned the refugees extensively and learned that the Vorthak Empire controlled hundreds of star systems and had never encountered serious resistance from any species they attacked. The Alterian military had tried to fight using energy weapons similar to what the Vorthak used, but discovered that the aliens had developed superior versions of the same technology. Your kinetic weapons might work differently, Commander Vex suggested while examining human military equipment. We never tried projectile-based systems because we thought they were primitive. Master Sergeant Lim demonstrated human kinetic weapons for the Alterian survivors, and their amazement at the destructive power gave him confidence that his Marines would have significant advantages. Intelligence. Director Kang learned that the Vorthak viewed other species according to their usefulness, with strong species becoming slaves while weaker ones were simply eliminated. The refugees also revealed that Vorthak expansion fleets were currently moving toward human space, with the intention of conquering Earth and all its colonies within the next 50 years. Admiral Choi realized that even if they succeeded in rescuing New Gyeonggi, the war with the Vorthak Empire was inevitable, and humanity needed to prepare for a much larger conflict. Captain Yoon's communications officers intercepted Vorthak military transmissions that revealed their complete confidence that no species could threaten their expansion. "They call us the soft ones," she reported to Admiral Choi while playing recordings of alien communications. "And they believe we will surrender immediately when faced with their superior technology." The Vorthak communications revealed that New Gyeonggi had become a major mining and military base with significant alien populations and defensive installations. Master Sergeant Lim studied the intelligence reports and realized that rescuing the human survivors would require fighting through heavily fortified Vorthak positions. During the third year of travel, the fleet encountered debris fields from battles where other species had tried unsuccessfully to resist Vorthak expansion. The wreckage showed that most species used energy-based weapons and shields that proved ineffective against superior Vorthak technology. Captain Yoon's weapons specialists analyzed the alien debris and confirmed that kinetic weapons would have been far more effective than the energy systems that failed. Admiral Choi ordered his fleet to maintain complete communications silence as they approached the New Gyeonggi system to avoid alerting the Vorthak garrison intelligence. Director Kang's deep space sensors detected massive Vorthak ship movements throughout the region, suggesting that something important was happening in alien-controlled territory. The fleet's xenobiology experts studied Vorthak physiology data provided by the Alterian refugees and developed specialized weapons that would exploit alien biological weaknesses. Master Sergeant Lim's Marines practiced urban combat techniques because the intelligence report suggested that any surviving humans would be hiding in underground facilities. Captain Yoon modified her ship's sensor arrays to detect human life signs while remaining invisible to Vorthak detection systems. As they approached the edge of the New Gyeonggi system, the fleet deployed advanced reconnaissance drones that would gather intelligence without revealing the human presence. Admiral Choi gathered his senior officers for final mission briefings, while the fleet prepared to drop out of hyperspace at the edge of the target system. "We have no idea what we will find when we arrive," he told his commanders, "but we will adapt to whatever situation we encounter, and we will bring our people home." Intelligence Director Kang's analysis suggested that the Vorthak would not expect any rescue attempt because no species had ever mounted such an operation. The fleet's medical officers prepared for casualties while hoping they would also be treating human survivors who had endured decades of alien occupation. Master Sergeant Lim briefed his Marines on various scenarios they might encounter, ranging from finding no survivors to discovering active human resistance movements. Captain Yoon checked her ship's weapons systems one final time while her crew prepared for what might be the most important battle in human history. The reconnaissance drones transmitted their first data as the fleet approached the New Gyeonggi system, and what they revealed exceeded everyone's worst expectations. The planet had been transformed into a massive Vorthak military and industrial complex with strip mining operations covering most of the surface. Dozens of alien warships patrolled the system, while massive space stations served as supply depots and repair facilities for Vorthak expansion fleets. Admiral Choi studied the tactical situation and realized that New Gyeonggi had become a crucial hub for Vorthak operations in this region of space. "If we can destroy this base, we will significantly disrupt their expansion plans," he told his staff while planning the attack. Intelligence Director Kang's sensors detected something that gave everyone hope, because there were still human life signs scattered across the planet's surface. The readings suggested that thousands of humans had survived the occupation and were still alive after 47 years under alien control. Captain Yoon felt a surge of determination as she realized that their rescue mission was still possible despite the overwhelming Vorthak presence. Master Sergeant Lim studied the planetary scans and identified locations where human survivors might be hiding in underground facilities. The fleet prepared to engage an enemy that controlled the high ground and outnumbered them significantly. but Admiral Choi had advantages that the Vorthak never suspected. Humanity had spent 47 years developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter Vorthak technology, while the aliens remained confident in their superiority. As the fleet moved into attack position, the crew members understood that they were about to announce humanity's arrival as a galactic military power. The Vorthak Empire was about to discover what happened when they underestimated a species that never forgot its people and never stopped. Preparing for war, Admiral Choi Woojin ordered his fleet to maintain position at the edge of the new Gyeonggi system, while advanced stealth probes gathered detailed intelligence about Vorthak installations and human life signs. Captain Yoon Seo-hyun commanded the reconnaissance mission, using Seoul's Thunder's advanced cloaking systems that the Vorthak had never encountered before. The stealth technology allowed her ship to move undetected through the outer system while scanning for any trace of the human survivors who had sent that desperate message 47 years ago. Master Sergeant Lim Tae-hyun prepared his elite infiltration team for what might be the most dangerous mission of their careers, because they would have to make contact with survivors while avoiding Vorthak patrols. Intelligence Director Kang Jisoo analyzed the sensor readings and discovered something remarkable that gave everyone in the fleet new hope. The human life signs are organized in patterns that suggest active resistance, rather than passive imprisonment, she reported to Admiral Choi during the morning briefing. The readings showed that humans were moving through underground tunnel networks and conducting what appeared to be coordinated operations against Vorthak facilities. Captain Yoon's tactical officers identified several locations where human activity was concentrated, including a large underground complex beneath the ruins of the original colony. Admiral Choi authorized a stealth landing mission to establish contact with the survivors and gather intelligence about Vorthak defenses from people who had been fighting them for decades. Master Sergeant Lim selected his best operators for the dangerous infiltration, including specialists in communications, stealth combat, and medical support. The landing craft used advanced cloaking technology to penetrate the planet's atmosphere without being detected by the extensive Vorthak sensor networks. Captain Yoon monitored the mission from her ship while her crew prepared to provide fire support if the infiltration team was discovered. The planet's surface had been completely transformed by decades of Vorthak strip mining, with massive excavations and industrial facilities covering areas that had once been forests and cities. Master Sergeant Lim's team landed near the suspected human stronghold and immediately began searching for entrance points to the underground tunnel system. They discovered that the original colonists had expanded the planet's natural cave systems into an extensive network that connected multiple resistance bases. The infiltration team made contact with human sentries who had been watching Vorthak movements for so long that they spotted the approaching Marines before any alien sensors detected them. "Are you from Earth?" asked an elderly woman whose weathered face showed decades of struggle, but whose eyes burned with unquenchable determination. Master Sergeant Lim confirmed their identity and watched as tears streamed down the woman's face while she activated communication systems to alert the other resistance leaders. The team was escorted through tunnels that had been carefully hidden from Vorthak detection systems for nearly 5 decades, while human engineers had continued expanding and improving the network. They entered a vast underground chamber where hundreds of people lived and worked in a community that had never surrendered despite overwhelming odds. An elderly man approached the Marines and introduced himself as Kim Do-hyun, former security chief of New Gyeonggi Colony and current leader of the human resistance. "We knew someone would come eventually," he said while shaking hands with Master Sergeant Lim. "We just had to survive long enough to see it happen." The resistance had grown from the original survivors to include their children and grandchildren, creating a population of over 80,000 humans who had never seen Earth but fought for its ideals. Dr. Lee Soman, now elderly, but still serving as the community's chief medical officer, had spent decades studying Vorthak biology and developing countermeasures against their weapons. "The younger generation has adapted to this environment in ways we never expected," she explained, while showing the Marines to their medical facilities. The children and grandchildren of the original colonists possessed enhanced reflexes, improved sensory capabilities, and resistance to environmental factors that made them formidable fighters. Jiwan, the communications officer who had sent the original distress signal, was still alive and had maintained contact with resistance cells throughout Vorthak-occupied territory. Your message reached Earth and they sent 300 warships to answer it, Master Sergeant Lim told her while she laughed and cried at the same time. The resistance leaders briefed the Marines on 47 years of intelligence gathering that revealed crucial weaknesses in Vorthak military systems, and tactics. Kim Do-hyun had studied alien patrol patterns, command structures, and equipment capabilities, while his people conducted constant sabotage operations. They think they have us completely controlled, but we've been bleeding them slowly for decades, he explained. While showing detailed maps of Vorthak installations, Dr. Lee Soman's medical research had discovered that Vorthak biology was vulnerable to specific compounds that humans could synthesize from local materials. The resistance had developed weapons and tactics specifically designed to exploit these vulnerabilities while avoiding direct confrontation with superior alien technology. Park Ji-won's communication network included contacts among enslaved populations of other species who were eager to join any rebellion against their Vorthak masters. Master Sergeant Lim transmitted all of this intelligence to Admiral Choi, while the resistance prepared to coordinate their operations with the incoming fleet attack. The Vorthak are planning something big, Kim Do-hyun warned during the final briefing. Massive fleet movements suggest they are preparing to launch their invasion of Earth. Intelligence Director Kang's long-range sensors confirmed that huge Vorthak war fleets were assembling throughout the region, with New Gyeonggi serving as a major staging area. Captain Yoon received orders to maintain stealth, while the resistance provided targeting data for the most critical alien installations. The human survivors had spent decades preparing for this moment, and their detailed knowledge of Vorthak weaknesses would be crucial to the success of the rescue operation. Dr. Lee Soman provided biological weapons that would be effective against Vorthak ground forces while causing no harm to human fighters or enslaved alien populations. We never stopped believing that Earth would send help, she told Master Sergeant Lim, while his team prepared to return to the fleet with their intelligence park. Ji-won activated her communication systems to send coded signals to resistance cells throughout Vorthak space, preparing them for coordinated uprisings. The resistance leaders understood that the coming battle would determine not just the fate of New Gyeonggi, but the future of human expansion into the galaxy. Kim Do-hyun's final words to the Marines carried the weight of nearly 5 decades of determination and sacrifice. Tell Admiral Choi that we are ready to fight, and we have been ready for 47 years. Master Sergeant Lim's team returned to the fleet carrying detailed intelligence about Vorthak defenses and confirmation that thousands of humans were ready to join the battle. Admiral Choi studied the resistance intelligence and realized that the mission had evolved from a simple rescue operation into something much more significant. The Vorthak Empire was about to discover that their casual decision to attack an isolated human colony had awakened something they were completely unprepared to face. As the fleet prepared for battle, the crew members understood that they carried the hopes and dreams of every human who had ever been threatened by alien aggression. Captain Yoon checked her weapon systems one final time while her communications officers prepared to coordinate with resistance fighters on the planet below. The stage was set for a confrontation that would announce to the galaxy that humanity had arrived as a major power and would never again allow its people to suffer alone in the darkness. Admiral Choi Woo-jin faced the most difficult decision of his career, as long-range sensors detected a massive Vorthak invasion fleet approaching the New Gyeonggi system with enough firepower to destroy his entire force. The alien fleet consisted of over 500 warships, including dreadnought-class vessels that dwarfed anything in the human arsenal. But Admiral Choi had advantages that the Vorthak commanders never suspected. Captain Yoon Seo-hyun received the attack orders and felt her pulse quicken as Seoul's Thunder prepared to lead 300 human warships against an enemy that had never experienced defeat. Master Sergeant Lim Tae-hyun's Marines checked their equipment one final time while preparing for simultaneous orbital drops on 12 different Vorthak installations across the planet. Intelligence Director Kang Ji-soo coordinated with the human resistance, while her communication system sent coded signals to enslaved populations throughout Vorthak controlled space. The battle began when Admiral Choi's fleet dropped their cloaking systems and announced their presence with a devastating barrage of kinetic weapons that struck Vorthak ships before they could raise their energy shields. Captain Yoon watched her tactical display as human projectile weapons punched through alien energy defenses like they were made of paper, while Vorthak return fire deflected harmlessly off advanced human armor. The alien commanders had never encountered kinetic weapons, and their energy-based defensive systems proved completely useless against solid projectiles, traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Master Sergeant Lim's drop pods penetrated the planet's atmosphere, while Vorthak ground forces scrambled to respond to attacks that came from directions they had never considered. The human Marines landed directly on top of major alien installations, while resistance fighters emerged from underground tunnels to coordinate their attacks. Kim Do-hyun led his people in the assault on the main Vorthak command center, while his granddaughter Soo-jin demonstrated the enhanced reflexes that made the younger generation such effective fighters. Dr. Lee So-man's biological weapons proved devastatingly effective against Vorthak ground forces while causing no harm to human fighters or the enslaved alien populations. They were trying to liberate. Park Ji-won's communication network triggered simultaneous uprisings by enslaved species throughout the system as they realized that the invincible Vorthak Empire could be defeated. The space battle raged for hours as human ships used tactics that the Vorthak had never encountered, while their advanced weapon systems proved superior to alien technology. Captain Yoon's tactical officers coordinated their attacks with surgical precision, while Vorthak commanders struggled to adapt to an enemy that fought unlike any species they had previously conquered. Admiral Choi's dreadnoughts focused their fire on the largest alien vessels, while smaller human ships used their superior mobility to attack Vorthak formations from multiple directions. The turning point came when Master Sergeant Lim's Marines captured the Planetary Defense Control Center and turned the Vorthak's own weapons against their fleet. Human resistance fighters who had spent decades studying alien technology proved invaluable in operating captured Vorthak equipment, while their knowledge of weak points allowed precise targeting. Dr. Lee So-man's research into Vorthak biology enabled the deployment of atmospheric weapons that incapacitated alien ground forces without harming other species. The enslaved populations of a dozen different species joined the uprising as they realized that liberation was possible, and their Vorthak masters were not invincible. Captain Yoon's ship led a final assault on the Vorthak flagship, while her crew demonstrated the tactical superiority that human military doctrine had developed over decades of preparation. The alien commander's final transmission revealed the shock and disbelief of a species that had never experienced serious resistance. "How is this possible?" the Vorthak leader demanded, while his ship's defenses collapsed under human kinetic bombardment. "You are supposed to be the soft ones." Admiral Choi's response became legendary throughout the galaxy as he demonstrated what happened when someone threatened humanity and waited 47 years for the consequences. "You made a mistake when you attacked our people," he said while his fleet finished destroying the Vorthak invasion force. "We are neither soft nor forgiving." The battle ended with complete human victory, as the last Vorthak ships were destroyed or captured, while their ground forces surrendered to the combined human and alien liberation. Army Master Sergeant Lim's Marines secured the prison facilities where thousands of humans had been held, while resistance fighters celebrated their first complete victory in decades. Kim Do-hyun stood in the ruins of his old security office while his granddaughter Soo-jin helped evacuate Vorthak prisoners who would be treated according to human military law. Dr. Lee So-min worked alongside human fleet medical officers to treat casualties. While marveling at the advanced medical technology that Earth had developed during their isolation, Park Ji-won sent a new transmission toward Earth, but this time it carried news of victory rather than a desperate plea for help. New Gyeonggi colony has been liberated, she announced while tears of joy streamed down her weathered face. "Our people have come home." Admiral Choi surveyed the captured Vorthak installations and realized that they had struck a devastating blow against an empire that had dominated this region of space for centuries. Intelligence Director Kang's analysis of captured alien data revealed the full scope of Vorthak expansion plans and the crucial role that New Gyeonggi played in their strategy. The victory sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy as news spread that the supposedly invincible Vorthak Empire had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Captain Yoon received communications from dozens of enslaved species requesting human assistance in their own liberation struggles. The liberation of New Gyeonggi became a rallying point for oppressed populations throughout the galaxy who realized that resistance was possible. Master Sergeant Lim's Marines found themselves training liberation forces from multiple species who wanted to learn human military tactics. Admiral Choi faced the challenge of managing a victory that had transformed from a rescue mission into the opening battle of a galactic war. The human fleet prepared for the journey back to Earth while carrying representatives from 12 different species who sought alliance with humanity. Kim Do-hyun chose to remain on New Gyeonggi to help rebuild, while his granddaughter Soo-jin joined the human fleet to see the Earth. Her family had fought to protect Dr. Lee So-min's medical research, became the foundation for treatments that would help enslaved populations recover from decades of Vorthak oppression. Park Ji-won's communication networks evolved into an intelligence system that coordinated resistance activities across hundreds of star systems. The victory at New Gyeonggi announced to the galaxy that humanity had arrived as a major power, with the military capability and moral determination to challenge established empires. Admiral Choi's final report to Earth Command became required reading at military academies throughout human space. We responded to a distress call from our people and discovered that we had become something the galaxy had never seen before. He wrote, a species that treats attacks on individuals as attacks on everyone. The fleet's return journey carried not just the rescued survivors of New Gyeonggi, but representatives of an emerging galactic alliance that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Years later, historians would identify the Battle of New Gyeonggi as the moment when humanity transitioned from a regional power to a galactic superpower. The Vorthak Empire's casual decision to attack an isolated human colony had awakened something they never understood and could never have prepared for, as the human fleet traveled back toward Earth carrying their rescued people and new allies. The message they had answered continued to inspire military doctrine throughout human space. Never again would humanity allow its people to suffer alone in the darkness, because every human life was worth a battle fleet, and every cry for help would be answered with thunder.